everyone out there. This is Ben Zinn with NextLevelGuitar.com. Thank you for joining us today. Our lesson today is going to be about how to start to jam over a jam track. So for all you beginners out there that want to start improvising and start jamming and having fun on the guitar, this is going to be the lesson designed for you. We're going to give you some tips and pointers on how to play the right notes over the jam track and how to kind of express yourself using some concepts as a template to do so. Before we get into the bulk of the lesson, I do want to quickly mention, hit subscribe up here. Just hit the subscribe button. Then what we're going to do is let you know whenever we bring lessons to you. Leave us a comment down below. We love interacting with you guys and hearing what's on your mind about guitar, about gear, about really anything. Leave us a comment down below. We appreciate it so much. But learning to jam on the guitar, I think there's a couple of key things to keep in mind, and we want to talk about those to get you guys started on the right path. So we have a jam track we're going to use today. One of the first things you want to know how to do is how to be able to play in the right key. So today's jam track is in the key of C minor, so we want to make sure that we are playing in the key of C minor as well. In order to do that, there's a couple of tips I can give you. The first tip is to locate where a C note is on your thickest string, on your 6th string or your low E string. And how you do that is you can count up from the open string, hitting each natural note until you reach C. Here's E, here's F, here's G, here's A, here's B, here's C. So now we have our starting point. We can plant our first finger there, and what we're going to use to improvise is our minor pentatonic scale. Fits like a glove over this jam track, and it's one of the most used tools in the lead player's arsenal. So how we play this scale is as follows. Just follow along here. We're going to have our targeted note. We're going to play this pattern. We want to commit this pattern to memory. We're going to get a lot of mileage out of this scale pattern. So if this is new for you, a great place to start is just to practice playing the scale up and down over the track. Just to get your feet wet and get comfortable. I realize some of you will already know this pattern, so we'll talk about how we can integrate this in a moment. So that's step one. Learn how to match the correct root note to the key of the jam track that you were playing over. If you're playing over one of the other jam tracks that we want to send to you guys, by the way, if you click on the link down below, we're going to send you a total of 6 jam tracks. The one that we're using for today's lesson in the key of C, as well as 5 additional jam tracks in different keys, different tempos, different styles. 6 jam tracks so you can try all this stuff over. A lot of fun, as well as 2 ebooks that will help give you some written component to pair with those jam tracks. So if you're in a different key, all you have to do is match the correct root note to whatever key the jam track is in. And why these jam tracks are great, they tell you the key too. So if it's in G, you find the G note, play the pattern there, and so forth. But back to our key of C jam track. We're starting here. We've mapped out where our scale pattern is. I want to give you a second pattern that's really useful, that's just a slight little deviation from this one. So follow along with me here. We're going to start again on the C note. Now when we get here, freeze. Instead of going to the next string, what we're going to do is we're going to move up to the 12th fret. And we're going to continue on a different pattern here. What this does is it gives us a second option for scale notes to play that expands the range of the scale a little bit. Let me play that from the beginning once more. Oftentimes I'll switch to this finger to help facilitate an easier transition. So there you have 2 pentatonic patterns. That's going to be the recipe or the ingredients that we're going to use to improvise. Now let's talk about how we're going to start to create music within this. Within that pattern, there are other C notes, and we want to point out where these are. We have C here. We're going to have C here. And we're going to have C here. Those are the 3 C notes, or the 3 root notes within the pattern in our first pattern. Okay, so one great way to start making music right away, no matter your skill level, is simply to slide into these notes and wiggle them and add some vibrato. And I swear that you can start making music just armed with those 3 root notes within the pattern. So what we're going to do is slide up to a note, and then we're going to wiggle it with some vibrato. This is going to make it sound a little more rockin' and a little more bluesy, give it a little bit more life than just a plain sounding note. There's one of my root notes. I can slide into it twice. I can wiggle it either back and forth or up and down. A couple of different ways to create the vibrato. And you can simply practice improvising, sliding into these different C notes. 3 times, 2 times, 17 times, whatever your heart desires. Is just a way to get comfortable with the track. The other C note I want to point out in our extended position is going to be right up here. So you have 4 locations to practice targeting. And you can start making music that way. So that we'll call that lick example number 1 there. In our second example, here's another concept. Now that you know where your root notes are, practice starting on one root note and just playing the scale down to the second root note and ending. So that gives you a lick. If I start from this root note and I try to work my way down to this one, here's what I get. Can cap it off with some vibrato, and that right there is going to work really great over the jam track. You can try changing up the speed that you're playing. You can try changing directions, go from low to high. And just play at your comfort level. You know, you want to make sure you can coordinate the hands, so if it's a little slower, that's fine. If you play multiple notes, that's fine. You can repeat notes along your journey. The basic idea is start on one root note, move to the next, and connect your root notes together. You can do that with any of the 4 root note locations that I pointed out. And if you stop and take a breath in between connections, in between lines, you have a lick. To me, that's all a lick is a series of notes that has a starting point and an ending point. Our third example that I want to point out gets into a little bit of more specific lick-based playing, but this is a great one that you'll learn it now, and you'll take this lick and you'll turn it into 100 as you get more comfortable with jamming over tracks. In this example, we're going to start out with the middle root note of our first pattern. We're going to play that note, we're going to play the next note in the scale, then we're going to play the next note in the scale. Now what happens now is, instead of going to the next note in the scale, we're going to push this note up or bend the string. So using 2 fingers here, the finger behind and the finger that's fretting, you can push that note up. Now later on you're going to want to target a specific distance, but right now just practice pushing it up. So you can practice pushing it up and releasing it, and you hear that bluesy quality that we get from string bending. You can practice bending it the other way too. You can bend a little bit, wiggle it a little bit, and go back down. Start with the root note, end with the root note. So as you can see, there's a lot of variations as you start to get comfortable with it. So we have 3 basic concepts for beginning jamming. We want to find the right root note to match up with the track of the key of the track that we're playing. And we want to be able to target our root notes. And to get comfortable, we can start practicing sliding into them, connecting from root note to root note, and finally that little bluesy lick. All of these concepts are going to work great over the jam track, so what we want to do now is demonstrate these. Want you guys at home to try this for yourself. Once again, if you want the jam track that we're using in the lesson, plus 5 additional ones in different keys, 2 ebooks, that's 6 jam tracks in total, plus the 2 ebooks, right? So a lot of good stuff to help you guys jam at home. Click on the link below. We'll send that to you for free. Right now, though, let's go ahead and give you these examples over the track. Want to say thanks for checking out the lesson before we do. And once again, I'm Ben Zinn for Next Level Guitar. We'll see you next time. So step 1, as we mentioned, locate your root note and practice playing your scale patterns just to get comfortable. Here's pattern number 1. Here's pattern number 2. Locate your root notes, practice sliding into them, make it sound good, you know, make it sound like you're jamming a little bit, add some stank. Wherever you're at, you can stay on one for a while if you like, but you can see how you can make it musical even though you're just dealing with one note. Okay, so targeting our root notes. Next, this is where it starts to sound like we're jamming. Pick one root note and then play to the next one, right? So if I start from the low one and play to the middle one. Connecting from one root note to the other using both scale positions. Adding a little bit of style to it along the way as you play. Vibrato, slides, all these things will come in time. And lastly, we had the bluesy lick. We're going to practice bending that note, play up to it, bend it some, and then return back home. So this is home base. However you can think of try to squeeze it out, and that's the idea with this.